I'm Zach. I'm 29 years old. I was born here in Lawrenceville, Georgia. I grew up as a very normal kid. I have a really good family that I come from. It's kind of interesting, I guess, to think of like all the stuff that I've been through, because my family's so normal, but a lot of my story is around drugs, and I had a lot of really hard experiences from that. I was in and out of rehabs for like 12 years. I had a very serious opiate addiction that developed in high school. I remember being in high school and doing it for the first time, and just when I did it the first time and like really felt it, that like the world was just like so much brighter at that point. Like, this is what I've been looking for like my whole life. And so that very quickly became my identity. After high school, that's when like the serious problems started, when I had no reason to continue using because I didn't have anyone to please anymore, but I still just kept doing it and kept doing it. Started, serious problems in my life. That's when I started using like, IV drugs, and that was its own, it was terrible. So I was in and out of rehabs for like 13 years. My first experience with thinking that I need to get clean or get help or something like that didn't really come from me, and it didn't for a long time. At first it was like my girlfriend or somebody telling me I needed to, and I believed them, I did, but I just didn't really have the desire to truly stop. And I mean, that's why it took 13 years to get clean. But I had agreed to go to my first one. My parents found out that I was using like I was, and so my dad came and got me from Colorado, and he drove me down in my car. I still had this desire in the back of my head, or just knowing that I was gonna continue using, but I was gonna figure out a way to do it to where it's not self-destructive, And that's something I still struggle with, to this day. Is I always have this little thing in the back of my head that's like, you can just do it. I remember being in North Carolina, and I was living at a sober living house. It's called an Oxford house. And I still wasn't clean, and I got kicked out, and I was just kind of sitting there at my dad's house on his couch, sleeping on his couch. And that was really it for me. That moment of being on that couch, and just I was ready to change finally. So I agreed to go to a year-long program called No Longer Bound, and that's when my life really turned around. That's where I found like myself again. That's where I found change. And like I found a whole new like willingness to live there, and I found so much like talent inside of myself, and like passion and drive. When I was at that program, that's where I kind of found that I don't have to be that person to be loved by somebody, or to love myself, even more importantly. I just found that like me, like the Zach that God made, that's who people love. My relationship with God has been just so up and down like my whole life. Like, I've wanted so badly to, full-heartedly believe in God, and I wanted to be that person that my parents so badly wanted me to be, but I just couldn't. And so most of my life that was a struggle, seeing everybody else have their own personal relationship with God, but I just didn't. God came back into my life at No Longer Bound. When I was in 8th grade, I took apart a remote control car, and I took the motor out of it and basically rigged up my first tattoo machine. I've done all of my tattoos myself. I've always just kind of been infatuated with the art side of it. Some of my tattoos have a lot of meaning and some of them have no meaning other than I like the way it looks. My first tattoo ever was this cross on my middle finger. The tattoo that means the most to me is this Triforce that's on my hand. It's from a video game that me and my brothers used to play. And so there's 4 triangles, I guess. There's 3 triangles on the outside, and each one of those represents one of them. And then the white triangle on the inside is me, and it just kind of represents perfectly like our brotherhood. I remember sitting there as young kids and playing Zelda all day long. The most important one other than that would probably be this guy right here. It's actually nobody in particular. It's just a picture of a clean-cut guy. When I was at No Longer Bound, I realized that somebody needed to cut the guy's hair, and so I learned how to do that, and I fell in love with it, completely fell in love with it. And it's just such an important part of that program for me because that's kind of when I found that I can pretty much do anything I put my mind to. This pirate ship here just kind of represents moving forward in life. You know, the sails are fully open and they're just going for it, so I guess that's what that means. The roses represent a fresh life, you know, something that's in bloom, something that has potential, I guess you could say. I guess why tattoos are so special to me is because, you know, it's what I do on myself and what I do on somebody else is just purely me, and putting it on either someone else or myself, it's there forever, you know? And so there's a huge level of fear that comes with that, you know? If I were to mess this tattoo up, it's there forever. And so there's a level of fun though that comes with that for me. Not only the pride of when it's done, when you have a nice, crisp, clean tattoo that you did yourself and you get to see that and somebody's so happy with it. There's just no feeling like that in the world. I think about going back to my old self and then having my future self and him meet, and I would just tell younger me that you don't need to be somebody that you're not to be loved.